Hello and welcome to another episode of BTV. This is the podcast version. I'm Marcus Boston.
And I'm Renee Boston.
And today we want to talk about a very controversial topic. I know a lot of our law enforcement and state's attorney friends may not like this conversation, but this is a conversation that we think that needs to happen, and it needs to be talked about. And the issue is whether you should talk to law enforcement or whether you should talk to the police if there's any indication or any inkling that you may have had something to do with a crime.
Now, are you talking about just from the criminal perspective or civil too?
No, well, specifically on the criminal side,
Okay.
because of the severity, the jailable, aspect of things. And this conversation is really going to shed some light on some things, and it's also going to challenge some of the stereotypes and some of the things that I'm sure a lot, if you're listening, that you probably heard growing up or even as an adult. When it comes to dealing with police officers, law enforcement, and some of these stereotypes are law enforcement is here to help and they're here to protect and serve, and if you have nothing to hide, then why do you have no problem talking to law enforcement?
And let me jump in right there. Those statements, they apply to children. So meaning if you see a strange man around the playground and there's an officer there too, yes, go talk to the officer at that point. I mean, if you're 5, 6, 7 years old, go ahead and talk to him, let the officer know that there's a weirdo creeping around the playground. But once you start driving, once you become elder adolescent and hanging around certain friends, the rules change.
The rules change. You have to grow up real quick. And again, for those who may have just joined in or just started, the issue today is talking to law enforcement, talking to the cops. If you've been, if there's any indication that you may have had something to do with a crime or anything like that, and it's no, you don't talk to them. That's really our position.
Say it
as
properly.
Attorneys.
Hell no.
You don't talk to them unless you have an attorney present.
And then you still don't talk. And you let your attorney talk for you.
Right. And you don't say anything. But to even give you a little bit of background, and the reason why this is very, very serious, and for those who may not know, the Bill of Rights to the Constitution consists of the 10 amendments, 1 through 10. And if you take a look at these amendments, the 4th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, the 6th Amendment, and the 8th Amendment deals with punishments and criminal process. Now, again, that's 40% of the Bill of Rights deals with the criminal process. Now, it's a reason why that almost half of the Bill of Rights deals with the criminal process, and that's because it's a very serious process. We're talking about you not having, your liberty, your freedom being taken away from you. And that's why almost half of the Bill of Rights protections deal with trying to protect you from the police, from the state's attorney's office, and things of that nature. So a lot of people, right, Renee, they have no idea that these protections even are out here.
And if our forefathers had the insight to put it in writing to protect its citizens from at that time and also in the future, it's got to be serious.
It's very serious. Very, very serious. And what I think a lot of people don't understand, Renee, is that, can you talk about what is the role of law enforcement? And then some background on Renee, if you're listening and you don't know. Renee is the attorney at our law firm who heads up our criminal division. She is responsible for all of our jury trials and our criminal cases. She takes the lead in most of those cases. So that's a little bit of background on her. She also at one time worked for the public defender's office. She's handled cases ranging from burglaries to robberies to handgun cases, attempted murder cases, assault cases, child molestation. So she's been around the block when it comes to criminal cases. She has dealt with hundreds of police officers when it comes to this stuff. And at this point, you can go ahead now and give the listeners, let them understand what really is the role of a police officer.
Well, I'll give you a little more information on the police officers. I mean, I know police officers in pop culture get the short end of the stick or get bad mouth and say, all cops are dirty or all cops are evil, and that's not true. However, for the amount of good cops who just do their job and turn it over to the state, that number, in my opinion, that I've seen over the past few years is dwindling. I'm not saying that everybody's bad or everybody's a rogue cop, but it seems like the role of the police officer is to investigate. They are there to make arrests. They're not there to actually try the case. They're not the district attorney. They're not the state's attorney. They're not the prosecutor. They're not the judge. They're not the jury. What they do is, if someone in particular is accused of an offense, the police officer investigates to determine whether or not there is enough probable cause to arrest and or charge this person.
Okay, now let me jump in. I'm going to stop you right there. If that is the basic role of the police officer, do they really give a damn whether you're a good person or or do they really care about that? Or is just their goal to try to build a case against you so they can lock you up?
That is their only goal. Some will try, and I was actually listening to a interrogation on a client of ours a few weeks ago, and it was a recorded statement. There was a video camera in the room that was recording the interaction between our client and the police officer, and the police officer was saying, okay, look here, guy, if you just tell me what happened, I can talk to the judge for you, I can talk to the state's attorney for you, and I can try to make some things happen. No, he can't. Police officer has no bearing or no stake into the outcome of the case.
Say that again, because a lot of people, they fall for these lies.
Right.
They fall for these misstatements. And it happens it's happening right now as we're somewhere in America as we're doing this podcast. There is a law enforcement officer somewhere telling a suspect what he can do for him in court. Can you talk more?
The police officer cannot do a damn thing for you. Let's say it again. The police officer can't do a damn thing for you. If I knew that young people and children weren't listening, I would say more than that. But I'm gonna leave it at that. They tell people that they can promise them the sun, moon, and the stars, but they don't have the authority to do anything other than to arrest you or not to arrest you. Their job is to, if say you've been accused of shoplifting, they are to go to the store that you're allegedly shoplifted from, talk to somebody who actually saw you shoplift, and if nobody saw you shoplift, they can't arrest you. So it doesn't matter what kind of side deals they attempt to make with you or anything like that. There needs to be some kind of evidence to arrest anyone, or evidence for the officer to try to get an arrest warrant to arrest you, or either to issue a summons for you to come to court and answer for the crime that you allegedly have completed in or participated in. But the cop is not the judge or the jury, so it doesn't matter what the cop thinks. And the cop can go and find all this evidence and present it all to the prosecutor, which is their only job, and think that they're going to get a conviction. An arrest and a conviction are two totally different things, and they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, in my opinion. So it doesn't really matter what the cop says or thinks about an issue. It matters is what the state can prove. So the cop is really just an intermediary, basically, between the alleged allegations and the court system. So the prosecutor is actually the one with more pull than the police officer.
Now, now you were talking about that issue specifically, and I want to try to use that to go into we kind of talked about it a little bit in that last little segment, but I want to talk to you more. I want to talk to everybody more about the interrogation process. Well, let's back up. What must the officer have to even be able to arrest you? I mean, you know, I know there's a lot of scenarios that can play out, but just in general, before a police officer can arrest you, what must they have to be able to arrest you?
In order to put the handcuffs on you and detain you, an officer must have probable cause. And probable cause means they have, you know, in essence, legal authority to believe that criminal activity took place and you were the perpetrator of it. So in some instances, if they heard that you may have done something, that may not be enough. However, if they heard gunshots and you're the only person on the street and you're running from the scene of the gunshots with a gun in your hand, maybe a little different. Right. But or there's blood all over your shirt, a little different.
And that's kind of why we really suggest that people should not talk to them.
No.
Because they're there to build that case. That law enforcement officer, he's listening to what you're saying and he's trying to build a case against you. He's looking for that probable cause. He's waiting for you to slip up with some of your statements.
Right.
So he can arrest you. Do I have it right?
No, you have it absolutely right. Because the thing is, and a lot of the times, they have circumstantial evidence, meaning direct evidence is something that someone can see directly. Like, I saw somebody do this, or I heard gunshots right beside me and I turned to the left and somebody was standing over the other person with a gun. Something specific that a person can actually, you know, see or touch themselves. Mm-hmm. Circumstantial evidence is the gunshots down the street and when one person running from the scene with a gun in their hand. You don't know if that person was coming from there or actually looking for. You don't know. So that's circumstantial evidence. So it really just depends on what evidence the police officer thinks that he or she has and how they try to use it against you. But what they typically say is, especially when they don't have enough physical or direct evidence, they try to get suspects talking and talking and talking right. under the guise of, the more you say, chances are if you're not being completely honest or not telling the truth, you may slip up. And also for people who are telling the truth, what they try to do is break you down. They'll have you in an interrogation room for hours and hours and hours on end. They don't want to let you go to the restroom. They don't want to give you a cigarette break if you smoke. They don't want to give you anything to drink. And so after a while, or they keep you up for hours and hours on end, you're tired, you're fatigued, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you have to go to the bathroom. And sometimes you'll just say whatever to get them to let you go. That you're thinking that they're going to let you go. And as soon as you say that one little trinket of information that they think they need, all bets are off.
Right, it's over.
You can spend 16 hours denying, but for 2 seconds you say, well, you know, I may have done it. Okay, well then we got enough right there. We're going to go ahead and lock you up. Right. So that's why people have to be very careful what they say, even jokingly. Don't say anything. Right. Because anything can be used against you.
Again, and that's why we strongly suggest that you do not talk to a police officer without an attorney present. Now let's also, we're still in with this interrogation section. What about the misrepresentations that we see on the videotapes? I mean, we've got clients that, you know, you'll see the officer make a statement, well, such and such has already said that you was there. Why don't you just go ahead? And they may not have even talked to such and such. There may not be such and such.
Chances are, you
know. So can you go ahead and talk to the listeners about that aspect of things, the dishonesty, the straight up lies, pretty much.
Well, they're gonna lie. Their goal is to get an arrest, and they try, and they'll do whatever they got to do, lie, cheat, steal, whatever, to get the arrest. So what they'll do is they'll lie to you. Oh, well, your buddy already flipped on you and told you X, Y, and Z. Well, then the thought for you should be, well, if they already told you that, what do you need to talk to me for?
Right.
It makes sense. If they've already got the information that they need, they wouldn't be talking to you. So chances are they don't have the information that they need. Right. They're just trying to lie to you and try to snowball you to think that whatever you say, the truth is going to set you free. they've already decided once they put handcuffs on you whether or not you're going to jail or not. So it doesn't matter what you say. You're not going to talk them out of letting you go. They're not going to let you go. If they've already taken you down to the police station and they've got you in the interrogation room, you ain't going
interrogation room, chances are you're not going home.
Right.
And now, what about though? Again, I grew up in a small town in Florida. Elementary school and all of that stuff. Police officers are good. I mean, you're indoctrinated with that. What about, again, going to the individual? And again, this has nothing to do with being white, black, Hispanic, or Asian, whatever. It doesn't have anything to do with that. What about the individual who thinks, though, Renee? They think that the law enforcement officer, he wouldn't dare do this. He wouldn't do this to me. He wouldn't say these things against me.
The people who think that are the ones who haven't been burned. They're the ones who haven't seen a cop screw somebody over.
Which we have seen.
Right. And I haven't had that happen to me personally, but I've seen it a lot with clients who say, I wasn't there. This officer saying it's me, but I wasn't there. And actually, after we further investigated, you realize they weren't there.
Right, or things don't make sense.
Right, or things don't add up. And then you realize that the client is telling you the truth, and then you present this information, and cases get dismissed, or you win at trial, and the officer's sitting there like, I thought this and I thought that. Well, number one, these officers have no accountability.
None.
They can arrest everybody and say they had enough probable cause to do so. And, arrest alone can destroy lives. And there's no accountability if they do this pretty much to you. I mean, there's pretty much no accountability. So they can just willy-nilly just start locking people up and then deal with the consequences the next day. Or it was a mistaken identity. We're going to let you go. Or we made a mistake on this, or you had the wrong description, and we're going to let you go.
But meanwhile, you've been fingerprinted.
Right.
You've been processed.
Right.
Now you're trying to get this good job, making over 6 figures. They've got a question on the application about, have you been arrested?
Right.
If you have, what? I mean,
and
all
you have
of
to
these
answer
things.
that truthfully.
Right.
Yes, you were. Even though the charges were dismissed, yes, you were. And some employers nowadays, especially with the economy the way it is and the job shortage is the way it is, some employers are looking for anything to kind of to deny people jobs and advancement. So, like I said, the police officer, he don't care. He locked you up. Oh, I made a mistake. Next morning, let you go. I'm sorry, it's just 16 hours out of your life. But still, again,
the repercussions
are so severe for the individual, and it transcends genders, races, socioeconomic statuses, education levels, regardless. It can happen to anybody, and it can affect anybody.
And this is why I've said it numerous times during this podcast. If a police officer wants to talk to you about a crime or about anything like that you really better think real hard before you open your mouth and blab to this officer about what you may or may not have seen, or where you were, or what you were doing, because again, they are trained to do this. They are trained to investigate. They're trained to trip you up with words. Most people in America, right, Renee, are not.
Right.
You can have a high IQ. You can be that top-notch accountant. You can be that great engineer. But most people aren't trained in this. Most people don't know the rules. Most people don't understand the law. Most people don't understand some of these things and these protections that are out here to protect you against the police. And again, that's why we suggest don't talk to them.
Because see, they'll say, if you say, well, officer, I don't want to talk right now, he'll say, okay, he'll leave you alone. And then 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, he'll come back and start asking you more questions about the same thing. There are certain words now that the Supreme Court has changed that you have to actually say, I want a lawyer.
Right. And talk about that too. Talk about that, because it used to be, before a recent decision, you could just be silent. You could, or just kind of look away.
Your right to remain silent.
Your right to remain silent was you just didn't have to say anything.
Right.
And it's so ironic now, you have to talk to invoke
you have to
your
express
right.
your silence now.
Right. You have to talk to invoke your right to remain silent.
It's exactly
and to
what it is.
ask for an attorney.
When they tell you, we ask them questions to ask you, you say, I want an attorney and I do not want to answer your questions.
Right.
And that should be it.
Right.
Don't say anything else. So don't fall for the pressure.
Let them do what, because chances are, if they're coming after you like that, like you said, Renee, they're gonna probably arrest you.
Right.
And they, especially if it's something where where they're saying that such and such has already said that you were here, or that you had the phone, or that you had this, or whatever. We've got your fingerprints on this. Again, if they have all this information, why are they coming to you? Exactly. They shouldn't be wanting to talk to you. They should just be ready to arrest you or whatever. So again, this is a very controversial podcast, but it's something that we felt that we needed to talk about, and that we needed to shine some light on this subject, because again, we are attorneys. We don't work for the state's attorney's office. We don't work for the police department. What we're concerned about are a person's individual rights in these type of situations. And it doesn't matter whether you have something to hide, or you may be guilty, or you may be feeling the pressures of that's irrelevant when it comes to knowing and invoking your rights. Right, Renee?
You're right. Mm-hmm.
Am I on the right track?
Yeah.
Again, we can go on, and this podcast is already up to almost 22 minutes. And again, this is a topic that we thought that we really need to talk about, and we're going to go ahead and start wrapping it up. But again, there's a lot of other information with dealing with police officers.
And the bottom line, if there is any doubt, if a police officer is asking you a question about something that either you don't know anything about, or you do but you don't want to say anything, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to answer any of your questions. I need a lawyer.
Right.
And stop. Don't say anything else. When they come back to you, or they try to talk to you again, don't give in. Don't give in to the pressure.
You have to be strong, and you have to hold your ground.
The judicial system is there to protect you if you stick by your guns and don't
with your
talk.
word. Right. It will protect you if you invoke your rights the right way. If you if you are in this situation and they got you in the back room and they say that you say, I want a lawyer. Okay? If they want to keep on talking, let them keep talking. But you do not open your mouth anymore, because once you get your lawyer will be able to go back and ram this stuff down their throats if they're trying to make a case against you and they are violating your rights.
Exactly.
But again, if you say, I want a lawyer, or you don't say I want a lawyer, you just say I want to be quiet, or you don't invoke your rights the right way, then you could be in for a world of trouble. Mm-hmm. Is that pretty much?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
So bottom line, don't say anything other than I want a lawyer, I don't want to answer your questions.
Right. So again, we've said a lot of times in this podcast, but I'm going to say it one more time. Well, should I say it one more time?
Say it one more time.
One more time. If you are faced with the situation and a police officer, from a criminal standpoint, and a police officer wants to talk to you, no, don't talk to them. They are there to build a case possibly against you, or even if they didn't know that you were possibly involved with something, now, because of what you may have said that may have been innocent, that you thought was innocent, they may now think that you're a suspect in what they've got going on. So we do these podcasts because, again, we feel that it's important to have good information out to the public. A lot of people aren't aware of their rights, and they don't know what they have, what type of rights they have, especially when dealing with law enforcement officers. And the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we were just at an event, a social setting, and this conversation kind of came up, and we were listening to a lot of people on both sides, and the main one was, well, if I'm not guilty, I don't have anything to hide, and that's really irrelevant when it comes up to this type of thing. The big issue is your rights. It's about protecting yourself and invoking your rights. So, Renee, is that it?
That is it.
I think that's about it. So if you would tell them if they want to ask us a question on a criminal defense matter or a personal injury, car accident, medical malpractice,
family law, any kind of question that you have on one of our practice areas, send us an email to info@bostonlawllc.com, and that is INFO. Was it info?
Right.
INFO@bostonlawllc.com, and I'm pretty sure it's somewhere. I don't know if you're listening to this from YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or somewhere, you can find information on us through either location. So info@bostonlawllc.com.
And if they want to call us,
or you can call us at 301-850-4832. Again, that's 301-850-4832. But business hours are 9 to 5. However, we check and respond to emails probably 24 hours a day in some instances.
Right.
So email is probably the fastest way to get a response from us, but you feel free to call us as well.
Right. And if you have a question, like she was saying, you can go through that what she just said, and also our YouTube page. You can find us and just type in Boston Law Group in the search bar on YouTube, and you'll get our channel.
And Facebook as well.
Facebook also, you'll get our Facebook page if you type it on Facebook. YouTube, if you type it on YouTube, you'll get our YouTube channel. We've got over 100 videos and podcasts dealing with issues like this, dealing with the police and criminal cases, family law issues, and injury issues. Those are the three big areas that we handle. We don't do property and bankruptcy and all of this, some of this other stuff. We kind of just stick to the stuff that we know and that we are good at, and that's what we do. So until next time, I'm Marcus Boston.
And I'm Renee Boston.
And we'll see you next time. You have just listened to a podcast from the trial attorneys at Boston Law Group, LLC. For more information, you can reach us at 301-850-4832. And if you would like us to answer a question in one of our podcasts, send us an email at info@bostonlawllc.com. Thank you and have a great day.